Here's a special offer from our sponsor. Join the Center for Gerontology on Tuesday, May 13th from 9 a.m. to noon for an interactive breakfast workshop at Concordia University, Chicago, led by Reverend Beth Long Higgins, a facilitator with the National Center to Reframe Aging. This interactive workshop will explore how people in faith communities can identify ageism and develop age-positive programming that reaches across generations. Have questions? Email Beth Truitt, Truett, Women Over 70 member and workshop project leader at bethtruitt@gmail.com, and see the show notes attached to this episode for registration information. Hi, I'm Gail.
And hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast featuring interviews with women ages 70 to 110.
And today we have in the studio Gail Straus. Gail is indeed an advocate for women aging, and we're very happy to have you, Gail. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
She describes herself as mostly retired, meaning that in addition to volunteer work, she remains open to the occasional client project. Gail's career progressed from college admissions to enrollment management and higher education marketing. She built on that experience with many years as a consultant to colleges, universities, and schools, as well as other nonprofit organizations across the country. Gail served as director of research for a small general marketing agency, helping a variety of nonprofit and for-profit organizations develop insights and go to market. In 2021, Gail joined the communications team at AARP, Illinois as a volunteer. She also serves on the board of directors for Guest House Chicago, donates time and expertise to the Morin Center for Social Justice in Evanston, is on the Ambassadors Advisory Committee to Steppenwolf Theater Company, and volunteers for the Taproot Foundation. So, Gail, you're a multifaceted woman for sure.
I suppose. Okay.
So how did you become involved in AARP? Tell us from the beginning. How did that happen?
Newly retired or not working full time. Maybe, however that I translate that mostly. Looking for something to do that utilized my skills, experience, expertise. And we had a friend at that point who was in the leadership in AARP, Illinois. And she said, "Oh, we're happy to have volunteers." So my husband volunteered as a more traditional volunteer there, which means he does a lot of advocacy work, interfacing with legislators and dealing with issues. And I don't want to do what he's doing, and I don't want to do that. So the communications director said, "We could use you. We could use you." And kind of gone from there. So it was a real opportunity to use my skills and experience in a place that I believe in.
And so, what are you doing then? What does your volunteer work include?
Yeah, one of the really cool things of volunteering with AARP is that they're very good at respecting those skills and experience of older adults. As we know, that's not always the case, and it wasn't always the case for me in the workplace. So I am considered truly a member of the communications team. I am at weekly staff meetings. A week or so ago, we had a staff retreat, and there I was. So on a general basis, I'm part of the team. Specifically, I do things like help with the media tracking. They use Nationwide, a platform that enables us to understand where we're getting our earned media hits. I write a monthly column that gets posted on their blog and Facebook and is emailed to members, and generally help with work with the communications team.
Gail, what are some of the topics that you've covered in your monthly column?
We're just about to slate out what this year will look like, so we've been on a little pause. But my first one was actually inspired by a conversation I had with my daughter who lives out of state, and somewhere along the line, she referred to me as elderly, and my reaction was, as I say, immediate and visceral. Don't call me elderly. And so that was actually the name of that first column. And talking about language and really recognizing that, well, I'm sure you would agree. I don't know what my age feels like. She's about to turn 45, and keep this one in mind. That's what I feel like. I like AARP refers to older adults, and I'm happy with that. We talk about aging, getting older, but not elderly. Not elder. And as I said to her, she'd know that. She'd know when I'm elderly. I've written about long distance grandparenting, which goes along with my only child being out of state and what that's like. I'm grateful for the technology that enables connection. Generally wrote about what I'm thankful for around Thanksgiving. And, both of those things apply. I'm grateful that I can have connections with my grandchildren, and I'm grateful that I'm feeling like 45 and not my actual age.
So tell us a little bit about AARP Illinois. What does it do? Why should we know about it?
Yeah, well, I think of I used to in my marketing consulting use the example, particularly in working with universities, use the example of the blind man and the elephant. That most people in many organizations, particularly complex organizations, only know the piece of the elephant they're touching and can only describe the piece of the elephant they're touching. And so I think most people would be surprised to know all of what AARP does. And it's everything. I always thought of the organization as the biggest lobbying group on behalf of older adults in the country. And think of that advocacy work, the work vis-a-vis the legislature, and that's certainly a big part of what they do. And right now, it's things like protecting Social Security, and it's advocating for caregivers is a big issue both in Illinois and nationally. It's really fighting age discrimination, protecting what we have, looking at where our needs are as older adults and how they can be improved legislatively. In addition, many people know AARP from the bulletin or the magazine, or maybe, as we were all younger and, hit that 50 and we got the first notice and it was jarring to some. But maybe it's that the people know. Maybe it's the discounts that came along with that. AARP has done a lot lately in trying to reach out to people who are not yet older adults, and it's been very successful in increasing membership for people under 50. Because as members, they can take advantage of all the discounts. But in addition to that, there's a slew of programming that is just geared to older adults in your community. So it could be celebrations of well, this month, Black History Month. It could be chair yoga. It could be cooking classes. There's a tax aid program. There are volunteers who will help you with your taxes. It could be driver's training, where there's a whole program around helping older adults renew their licenses, prepare for the tests. So it's just, what isn't AARP involved with that pertains to older adults, those of us as we age.
Gail asks, what, March is Women's History Month. And I'm interested in what you think, what kind of attention do you think should be given to women's experience of aging? Focus on women as the older adult population.
Yeah. So AARP does a lot, and yet not much specific. I think the caregiving is where my head immediately goes. We're often in that sandwich generation, and we maybe as we get older we're in more need of caregiving, but yeah, we're the caregivers. So that's very much a women's issue. There is a whole developing social network called the Ethel groups that they're all volunteer, and they bring women together in groups across the country to have connections. And that's certainly very important, as in the work you do with women over 70. So many of the programs as well are very much, not to gender type, but very much geared to women. Whether it's some of the physical activities, the cooking, as I mentioned, some of the other things that we think of primarily as things that would be attractive to women, although men are welcome.
The articles in the AARP magazine are really very, very educational and instructive, and they share celebrities who are turning 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And so I think that's one of the publications that AARP has are really useful for the older population. And yeah, so does Illinois have its own kind of publication or not?
Not specifically. You'll see in the bulletin that there are often articles, so where the state is invited either to contribute to articles they know they're going to write in the bulletin, or we will come up forward and say, we have an idea, this is what we're working on, and we want to place an article there. And so you'll often see a byline for AARP Illinois. We focus more, so that if you follow the blog posts, that certainly almost daily they're updated. That's probably an exaggeration, but it feels like it. You'll find, in addition to the In Conversation that I write, they're just posting about all kinds of activities and the issues that we're involved with. So nothing in print, but certainly lots of ways of communicating.
Does AARP Illinois have a lot of volunteers?
A lot of volunteers. Always looking for more. This week there was a volunteer training session in Springfield to help people interface with legislators. During the session, volunteers are very much encouraged to go down to meet with their own, but other legislators. There are often telephone campaigns, and then that also happens on the local level. So empowering people to go and talk with, whether it's older people or council people, whatever, your mayor, and talk about issues related to aging. They may staff a telephone town hall. That's one of the other devices that we use. So there was just recently a telephone town hall around this driver's license renewal bill that the Secretary of State is supporting. And so he was featured in a telephone town hall, and volunteers are the ones who staff that, who you're asking the questions to. There's a speaker series, a DIY series, that on a variety of topics that volunteers are in charge of delivering. Basically, and no ideas are bad ideas. AARP has a philosophy, I guess you'd call it. They call it the letting go program. I was fortunate to participate with a member of the communications team in my first year of volunteering, and this was a national, online, several session course that they call, again, letting go. And the idea being that staff don't have all the answers, and that volunteers not only have wisdom and experience to contribute, but their way may be the better way. Or so the letting go pertained very much to saying to staff, if you ask a volunteer to do something, let go of some of your power. Again, that's, in my experience, pretty unusual and not easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there any special things that you have done for AARP that you would like to talk about?
I stood out in the cold in front of the Illinois, I couldn't get the initials right, in front of the utilities board to protest raises. We were successful in keeping utility costs down. We're working now to fight the people's gas increases. We were successful in the last session vis-a-vis some of the water companies. So I've done some of that. I've helped deliver wrapped presents to children, coming out and presenting our wrapped gifts. I've worked with State Fair on behalf of AARP, and stood we have a pretty significant presence, and stood in the booth and spent a day talking about all that we do to people who walk by. And so in addition to the day-to-day, I've contributed to creating some systems that have made the communications team more efficient. Yeah, it goes on.
We're talking about AARP Illinois, and our listeners come from all over the United States. So what can you tell us about our AARP in other states?
Things are very similar in terms of heavy use of volunteers. As far as I know, I'm the only one attached as I am to the communications team. I was just on a call with the communications director in Minnesota, who was asking about what I do, particularly in the media tracking, and how to empower a local volunteer to do some of that. So I think our communications director is very much involved with her counterparts across the country And I know the In Conversation column is one of the things that she has showcased and others have shown an interest in. So I think there will be more like me, if there aren't already, in other states. I would certainly encourage listeners to go online to their state chapter, and I believe that most of them will have here's how to volunteer and what to do. There were certainly, in that letting go workshopping, there was a range of people from all over the country, and volunteers and staff. So lots of opportunity here in.
Yeah. So the national presence is strong. AARP's national presence.
Yeah. Yeah. And the national AARP is very protective of its brand, as it should be. I say that both as a member and a marketer. And so that the ethos appears to be the same across the country. So it's not dependent on who you happen to work with. This is how we work with volunteers, and we value volunteers. As I often say, if not AARP, who, in terms of really honoring the wisdom, expertise, experience of older adults.
And actually, it's the history of AARP. Where did it start? And I know it's grown enormously.
Yeah, I'm not going to be good at that. I should have done more homework. You certainly started as an advocacy organization.
You really,
yeah, first and foremost, we have a voice, and we need to express, and we need to protect what we have, the quality of life, and so forth. But I'm sorry, I don't know enough to really speak to it.
yeah, that's fine. You're a volunteer, and you're in Illinois, and yes, so that's
so the strength of the state chapters, if you will, is relatively new. And I think recognizing, as we all know, that politics, policy, there's enough is local, or if not more local, then everything doesn't happen out of Washington. And so the growth of the state chapters, which, I've been volunteering now nearly 5 years. Maybe it's 10 years or 12 years ago, but is relatively new in the history of AARP.
I thought, yeah.
And I'm curious, Gail, in the few minutes we have left, if there are, Gail mentioned many other involvements that you have, and do any of these have to do with aging related issues?
Not directly. So my biggest involvement is as a board member of Guest House Chicago. And certainly, so Guest House Chicago is located in the Illinois Medical District, where what has been called in the industry a hospitality house. The easiest way to talk about it is to say it's a Ronald McDonald's house, except we take people of all ages. And so we're located in among this group of hospitals in Illinois, sponsored by the hospitals, served by the hospitals. No, so I make the connection to older adults to say that many we provide the comfortable place to stay for patients and families who need long-term care at one of the hospitals for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. As a result, many of our constituents are older adults. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. We have had neonatal patients or parents of, and run the gamut in age, but So that's the closest involvement I've had in any of the other things I do with older adults. And then the other things that I have volunteered with, I would say, are all organizations that respect the wisdom and experience of older adults. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing AARP Illinois with us. We appreciate it. And we thank you very much, Gail.
Well, thank you for the time. I'm happy to do it and certainly available to you and others if questions arise.
Thank you. And you show us the power of volunteering. That's excellent. Thank you. And listeners, we'd like to see more of you at our monthly online programs. Make your voice heard as together we change the conversation about women aging. Visit Aging Reimagined Circle at womenover70.com. And another podcast you might enjoy is Fit Strong Women Over 50. Jill McCausland and Chris Brown interview experts and share motivational stories about getting fit, healthy eating, strength training, running, and staying motivated. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.